Okay, welcome to the May 24th Justice and Equity Committee meeting of the San Juan County Charter Review Commission. We are almost all present here today. In terms of roll call, Sharon, you're with us, you can hear us?
Here.
Okay, Commissioner Ranker, you
I'm
can,
here.
okay. And Commissioner Davies, have you joined us on the phone? Can you hear us?
I can. You hear me?
Yes, excellent. We've just started the meeting. Okay, wonderful. Glad you could
Okay.
join. Okay, so we may not need to meet till completely 5:30 today. Let's just see how this goes. I think it could be done more quickly than that. So Kyle, can I just ask if you have do you have any visuals? If I put something on a share screen, are you able to see it or not?
I won't for another half an hour or so.
Okay. Did you receive by email the email I sent you that had an attachment?
I got two. I got one at 4 that had all the most recent. I haven't opened that because I'm on the road, and then I saw one before that a day or so ago, I think.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you have the most recent email with the attachment, which I tried to send out earlier, but it didn't go. So, okay, well, listen, let's proceed as best we can. Kevin is with us. He's just going to be, well, you're all with us, except none of you are on screen, so I should get off screen. You're all here, which is great. And we're gonna try and get, oh, there's Kevin showing his smiley face and he's dancing. Excellent. Let's proceed with approval of the minutes from May 17. You will see that I just made some minor edits, very simple stuff. Where Sharon had a question mark, I just filled in whatever. So I'd like to put a motion on the table to approve the minutes for May 17th.
Second.
Okay. Kevin's giving me a thumbs up as well. Sharon,
Yes.
you have a chance to look at them?
No.
Okay, but the edits I made were extremely minor and not substantive. So,
Great, and I appreciate it.
okay, can I put a motion on the floor to approve the minutes? I'm gonna actually do that. So motion to approve the minutes.
Oh, second.
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought you did
seconded by
already.
Davies.
Oh yeah,
right?
sorry, that's right, sorry. Okay, does everyone vote in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Hi.
Excellent, thank you, you guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so the third item on the agenda, and by the way, Megan McLean is with us today because it's possible she will be able to do some editing for us, and if there's any final bit of research we might need her to do, I felt it would be valuable to have her be a part of us. And I've shared with her the documentation that was presented last Thursday, as well as the marked up and edited version of the document that we're just going to go over today. So welcome, Megan, and thank you for joining us. I'm glad you can be here. So number three, agenda item number 3 is just a brief discussion of Justice and Equity Committee meeting presentation on the 20th of May. Does anyone have anything to say about that presentation? Any takeaways, or do we want to just move right into the nuts and bolts of reviewing edits and changes? Open to any discussion.
I know you can't see everybody. I just want to say that I think as a tribute to your work and the preparation of the committee as a whole, granted I didn't see all of it firsthand, but I was pretty happy with how it was received and the places where people chose to bring up. Most of the early stuff, at least that I heard firsthand, was making it stronger, language, pregnancy and stuff like that. And so I think having it be lined out really well and pretty plain for everyone to see, it was better received. And so unless something major changed, I was pretty excited about that. So it's a big win.
Excellent. Thanks, Kyle. We really missed you, though, I must say. I think everybody can, I think we can all agree that we missed your presence, but we're glad you were at least there for the beginning. Kevin, go ahead.
I just want to echo what Kyle said. Jane, I think you've crushed it. I think you've done just an incredible job on this and really helped hurt us in a way that brought together a number of big ideas into a concise and appropriate presentation, but also more importantly, a set of amendments that we have before us. So thank you for your time. I'm fully supportive of what's before us.
Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. Thank you very much. Sharon, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
I'm totally in agreement with that. And I'm just looking over quickly some of the changes in the document that you sent, and everything looks good to me so far. And I know we want to,
You're Dana, right?
no,
no.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you were. Sorry, you guys were up there.
Anyway, we're in Bellingham, so it's a little,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
but I know that we want to work on the land acknowledgement.
Yeah.
So
There's-
yeah, but I'm very happy with the presentation and all the work that we've done, but you've really taken on lion's share.
Excellent. Oh, well, thanks, Sharon. Okay, so yeah, no, and me too. I you know, I would have to say that I was really pleased with the reception of our work and yeah, and the appreciation of it from everyone, and felt that the contributions were very valuable. So yeah, I'm just really pleased that can you can just pull out what you need, husband? My husband's skulking around in the door of my office trying to get something. Okay, goodbye. Okay.
Tell him I'll
no.
get him his federal letters later.
Okay. So no, I was really pleased with the contributions. I found it a bit frustrating, Kevin, Mr. Chair of the full CRC, and that I found that some of the contributions were not helping as much as maybe we would have wished they'd had. And I think that your call at the end of the meeting was to limit us to 2 comments was so totally appropriate and much needed, and will force people to be more deliberative in their comments and reflective on what they have to say. Because I found it, I mean, I was so utterly exhausted by the end of it, I could barely move. And that's also why I missed Kyle, because we couldn't help each other out and stick handle it together, but which we'd planned to do, but I knew we might have to fall off. But it was painstaking, Kevin, as painstaking presenting as it was chairing, in my view. I don't know if you had anything to say on that.
It was only a 3-hour meeting. Come on.
Now you know why I laugh hysterically when people say, "Aren't you going to run for that position?"
Yeah, no kidding.
And by the way, it's 1. From now
Oh, it's
on,
1.
everybody gets 1 comment, and it will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per subject.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll see how that goes over some of the more verbose among us, but nevertheless.
I have the ability to mute people.
Use
To
it
do
over-
what?
I will be actively muting people if they speak out of turn or try to speak a second or third time.
We need a sergeant of arms, I think. That's what should go in the budget for next time.
No, what we need is a taser.
Seriously.
That'll be a Zoom feature in a year or 2, I'm sure.
And a little
No,
bit of
Kyle.
little bit of tear gas through the vent ducts of our homes. Yeah. Lovely. Okay. So, well, listen, with that, I think let's proceed and move through the edits I made. I know that you may not feel it's necessary to go through all of these, but I do feel it is, just because I really need your okay on these edits, so that we can send them out to the full commission. And you know, I'm aware of the fact that, you know, it could be that the prosecuting attorney's office comes back with something that we're not expecting, but I hope not. So they'll get it when everybody else does. So let's just try and move through these briefly and see where we land. And are you all okay if I just walk you through them one by one?
Works for me.
Okay, all right. So the first set of amendments relates to the non-discrimination section. And you may recall that it was Janet Brownell who suggested that we bring one of the points under findings forward and have that be an introductory sort of statement leading into those two clauses on non-discrimination, the first and the second clauses. So that's what I did. And so now the beginning of this article, this section of Article 10 reads, while the county is obligated to uphold the charter and the county, state, and federal statutes on issues of anti-discrimination, human rights, affirmative action, etc., the act of amending the charter to include a San Juan County commitment to these principles and values reinforces their importance to the functioning of the county government, period. Therefore, comma, and then the two clauses follows. Are you guys okay with that introductory statement subject to any editorial amendments that the PA's office
Yeah.
might see? Okay, all right. Any other comments? All good?
Yeah, looks good to me.
Okay.
I like it.
Okay, so then the only changes I made to the first clause was in the first sentence, I added, it now currently reads, I added and staff, and I added hiring and conditions of employment. So it reads, in the exercise of its powers or in the performance of its duties, the county council, department heads, all elected officials and staff shall ensure that there be no discrimination in hiring and conditions of employment or compensation of county officers or employees or in blah, 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 okay? And then pregnancy was also included as one of those criteria. And then at the bottom, the final sentence, I changed the language to recognize the county charter, but as well as county, federal and county, state and federal and state constitutions, laws and regulations. I have a little typo there. So basically what I did was I took note of the inputs provided by David Dellendorf regarding all staff, the input regarding hiring and conditions of employment that was provided by Bob O'Connell, the issue of pregnancy that was wanting to be, many commissioners wanted that to be included as a basis on which discrimination can happen. And then with regard to Bob O'Connell's comment about referencing the charter itself, as well as county, constitutions, laws, and regulations. So those are the changes to that clause.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
is it possible that maybe Megan spends a little time there just to, I think keeping it generic, keeping the piece about references to the charter kind of generic makes sense, so that whatever shape it takes or whatever additions there are, there's still that application.
Mhm.
But maybe that's a place where she could spend a minute and just, I haven't really looked to see specifically where there might be that other crossover, only because if for sake of argument, if nothing else in our amendment work passes, then there isn't anything in the charter that clause would refer to, and so just getting that wording right so that it works whether there's crosstalk or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And so Megan would like to say something. Go ahead, Megan.
It doesn't entirely make sense to me, so somebody's gonna have to follow up with me on that point. Just talk me through it a little bit. And then Jane, you and I discussed in the section 1, I'd really like to see you guys put a comma after military status,
Oh, right. Yeah.
because it makes it seem that military status and somebody who's discharged for all those reasons are the same thing. And I think that might,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
and
Okay.
you might even need a third comma, you just separate those as separate and distinct categories.
Sure. Totally hear you.
And I can work on it.
Yeah, if you don't mind, that would be great. And in terms of the point that Kyle was raising, I had a question for you all, actually. I mean, and it was whether or not we ask, and Kevin, you might have thoughts on this, whether or not we bother asking Amy Vera of the prosecuting attorney's office, what language would be most appropriate for that final sentence, given that, as Kyle said, there's nothing on non-discrimination in the charter right now, and how best we accommodate if this proposed section does get approved, and making a cross-reference. So, because that was something that we received back in the way of feedback from Randy, right? So Kevin, do you have thoughts on, before we sort of lay that on Megan, do you have thoughts on whether we should ask the PA's office as to how we word that, or?
Sorry, clarify for me again what the question would be.
Okay, so the question would be, given that we don't know if, currently the charter does not say anything about non-discrimination. And given that we know that this will appear on the ballot separately, probably from the commission appearing on the ballot, the proposed commission of Justice, Equity, and Inclusion. How do we make sure that that there's some reference to the charter and other aspects of the charter that might speak to non-discrimination if none of that has been approved yet? How do we ensure that sort of there's cross linkage, as Kyle said, because I'm a bit confused about that myself, and I don't want to land it on Megan and have her just feel equally confused.
So I'm not convinced that it has to be a separate ballot measure or separate entity in the charter. I think we can write this in a way, and Megan, I can help you with language on this because I'm doing this. I'm helping Anne Marie with this right now for the climate and environment stuff in an interrelated way, so that it's very clear that it goes together. And so then it could be one ballot measure. If that's not the case, if this is truly just a policy piece that is separate from the creation of the commission, then I would do here, I just wrote for you because I'm writing it for others. I just put it in chat, a severability clause, which is language that you put at the end of your proposal, which basically says if any part of this is deemed inappropriate by the courts or something, it does not bring down the other parts of it. And so I think that's one piece. The other piece is the interrelated way that you draft it. And I actually think, Madam Chair, that one of the things that, and Megan, again, I'll work with you on this, but the way we could draft this is that it's all one amendment. It's you basically start describing this as, do the voters of San Juan County want to implement a justice and equity strategy, whatever you want to call it, and that includes these policies and the creation of this commission.
Right, okay.
I don't know if there's time or how to do it, but I forget the term that you use, but it seems like I would want to float that concept to some a subset of otherwise unknowing voters, just to see if there's a palette for that. I can't see any one piece that submarines the rest of it, but is that, I mean, I don't want to overwhelm people either with, whatever X number, we'll say 20 different amendments or more, but at the same time, if we don't get the votes, then we tank the whole thing. Is that a risk? I mean, apparently,
yeah,
Kevin,
somewhat.
You're not seeing that.
Yeah, so I think any voter who's going to support justice and equity is going to support it kind of broadly, right? I don't see too much division there. And I think also the ballot title and the question that's on the ballot versus what's in the voter's pamphlet is another thing. But to your, maybe it was the middle point you made, I am increasingly concerned at the number of measures we're putting forward. Yeah. And that's the palette that I don't think the voters have. And I will tell you that the internal discussions we're already having is that we're going to have to continue our work through the end of the year, not necessarily meeting, but because I think we're going to have to split the ballots. I think there's unless we can winnow this down quite a bit, I think we're going to pull what King County did, which is put, say, 5 or 6 on the ballot this November and 5 or 6 on the ballot next November. Mm-hmm. You get many more than that, it's ridiculous. And so I think there's a way to write this. And also this really makes sense too. We're talking about the same subject matter. What we're talking about is justice and equity. So the question on the ballot would be, shall the county take, measures to advance justice and equity, these three policies and the creation of the commission? And I've discussed this with the prosecutor's office as well as many others for other subjects. I have not discussed it for our justice and equity work, but I do think it's something we might want to explore. The severability clause I just put in its entirety in the chat, mainly for Megan, but also Jane. So you guys can look at that. I think we should think about putting that at the end of most of our pieces. And that just clarifies that if there's a challenge to one section of what we're putting forward and and the courts find that that is not appropriate, then it makes sure that you don't take down the entire
ballot.
thing.
Right. Can we rank choice vote, like pick your top 3 sub amendments?
That's not funny, Kyle.
I'm sorry. Couldn't help it. I think it's hysterical. Couldn't help it.
I hear you. Well, Kevin, so yeah, I've taken and I've copied and pasted your text there, Kevin. I've dumped it in the bottom of the document that I've been marking up and editing. And I've also taken that first little bit of verbiage. I'm conscious of how much you have on your plate and don't want you to feel like you have to pick this up, but would be happy to work with Megan on this if you would prefer. If you could share with us how you're proposing to package whatever on environment and climate, but don't want to add more work to your plate. So whatever is good for you.
There's literally not enough time in the day to add anything more to my plate, so that won't happen. So don't worry about that. But what I will have to do, I think what I'll do is finish writing up the other stuff I'm writing up and then share that language with you and Megan, and you can basically make your own version of it.
Okay.
But I have done a ridiculous amount of research on this too, and have findings. I have all of it, but again, broadly for that subject matter, but I'm writing it specifically for another committee.
Right. Okay. Well, why don't we proceed
I'm
that
sorry
way?
they got to me first.
No, it's okay. Why don't we proceed that way then? And I guess sorry?
Jane, if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
one other thing is that, and Megan, this will be some of the crunch work that you and I with others subcommittee chairs are doing, but I believe it's going to be really important that as we go through and we take the votes on each subcommittee's actions, then what we're going to have to do is put the entire document together and say, this is our new charter as proposed by the Charter Review Commission. And we're going to adopt that. And we're going to vote on that in its entirety put together. And that is important for two reasons. One is then we've allowed it to be drafted in the appropriate way, which is a key reason for us bringing on Megan. The other piece is that the full commission does a final ratification of the total recommendations. In the past, there's been concerns raised that after the fact, some of the editing actually made fundamental changes, and we can't have that. We're going to have a final document that's the final document, period.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so more work.
Okay. Right. Yippee. Okay. So
Megan, you're not allowed to freak out and quit yet.
no, and if you feel the need to, you're coming over to my deck and we're having some more wine. Okay, just kidding. That's a joke. That's a joke,
Wow.
public. Okay, so
Madam
all right.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
just a quick question for Kevin. Which are you is somebody gonna talk to the town hall kind of audience as if all these will that be ready for verbal rollout that soon?
Yep.
The amalgamation of the
The amalgamation may not be. Yeah, I think at the town halls, what we're going to do is go through by topic and give
Okay.
an overview and let people comment. I don't think the
Okay.
entire document will necessarily be finished by then. I'm hoping that
Sure.
it would be finished before the 8th when we present to the county council, which in reading the charter language that we're operating under, I'm not even, the presentation to the county council is not my concern. It's getting it to Mylene in time to make sure it's on the ballot appropriately, which means it's
Right.
been vetted by our prosecuting attorney's office. he's had time to write the ballot titles and the measures. He has to write the non-partisan kind of non-binding description. And then we have to get a pro and a con statement for each. So
Right.
that all takes time. That's the timeline we're operating under. So back to your question, for the town halls, we will be able to present everything that we're putting forward. I'm not sure if the entire document that I'm discussing will be finished.
Okay,
Okay,
okay. So,
Thank you.
no problem. Kevin, just to be clear, the non-discrimination section though will still be, will still stand separate from the commission as proposed amendments, correct?
Well, Jane, I think that's up to you. What I was saying is you could combine it all. You could have, here's the changes, here's the justice and equity work. I'm not sure, I haven't put my head around and given any thought to whether or not this needs to be multiple amendments with the way we've been discussing it, or if it could be interrelated and therefore be one. But I need you to also give guidance on that, on whether or not you want it to be. But for today, what I would say is we should go through and maybe approve the final small changes. And then we can look at that and find out, A, if it's possible. And then if it is possible, then you and Kyle make a decision on what you'd like to propose.
Mhm, mhm. Judging by what I've seen in the 5 other charters that have non-discrimination clauses, they all stand separate, like they all stand alone.
I'm not-
Yeah,
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I'm not saying that the section wouldn't stand alone.
okay,
I'm purely discussing how it's presented to the public. Is
On the
it one
ballot.
proposal with multiple sections that are interrelated and therefore it's one ballot title? Or are
gotcha,
you gonna have
gotcha,
5 ballot titles just on justice and equity?
gotcha.
One says
yeah,
I'm creating a commission. The next says
okay,
there's a workplace thing. The next says there's something else.
exactly,
I
exactly.
think the
So,
latter becomes problematic pretty quickly.
gotcha. Yeah, I hear you. And so, who do we ask about that though? If it's not the like, I don't know. I mean, what is my source?
I'm not
for-
saying it's not, I'm not saying it's not the PA. I'm saying the first step is to finalize our language and say, here's
Gotcha.
our final language,
Yep,
or here's our close to final language.
yep,
But I would write it in a way so it is interrelated, so they refer to each other and
Gotcha.
so on,
gotcha.
so that there's the
Yep.
opportunity to have it blended.
Gotcha. I understand what you're saying. Okay, so
And then when we're done with that, then we go back to Randy and we say, hey, other sections of the charter are coming together like this under one title. We think this fits too.
Right.
And with the instruction that we've received from him already and the research we've done, we have an idea or some ideas on how to do that.
okay,
And so I think that we can start moving in that direction.
okay.
And I think we should
okay.
definitely write it that way.
I understand what you're saying. Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. And so between Kyle and Megan and myself, we can proceed with that. Okay, sounds good. So Megan, we're not throwing you out in left field on this. We'll work with you on this. And but I'm understanding what Kevin's talking about. So we'll just need to, we'll need to bring you in the loop a little bit more, Megan. So you're feeling on the same page as well. Okay, so with regard to that last sentence under clause 1 in terms of, consistent with, and then we've got the county charter and county, state, and federal constitution laws and regulations. Kyle and Megan and I can talk about that language and how it might need to be tweaked, but we'll leave that for now, if that's agreeable to everybody. And I think I think I'm getting a thumbs up on all the other edits as I read them to you to accommodate inputs provided by other commissioners for clause 1. Is that correct?
Yeah, the section is better now, I think.
Okay, excellent. And Megan, we will still get you to help us do a final read and edit of that, for commas, etc. Clause 2, the only 2 changes that were made were to add pregnancy. Megan wants us to add at least 1 comma after military status, and then we may add some more commas or what have you, grammatically, for grammar purposes. And then the second change was again that language around consistent with, the charter the county charter and county, state, and federal constitution, laws, and regulations. So we have the same issue there in terms of needing to make sure that that language is appropriate. Okay. Is that good for everybody?
Yes.
All right. So we can move on now because there was no suggested changes to findings other than to move what was the third finding to the sort of introductory paragraph of that section. So moving on to what is B, or the new section on the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. I have proposed some revised wording for that section. Do you want me to do share a screen for anybody who wants to look at it? Or Kevin, would you like me to do share a screen, or Sharon?
I'm looking at it on my
Okay.
laptop.
And Kevin's with us or not. Megan, I can see you're looking at it. So what I've done, you can see, but Kevin cannot. Not Kevin, Kyle cannot. Kyle, I'll just read it out, okay?
Sure. Thanks.
All right. So the proposal is that this amendment read as follows. The charter establishes a citizen-led Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission to review and advise all elected and appointed county officials on county matters regarding justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. The new language is what follows. The commission shall be established as of January 1, 2022, period. Members of the commission shall be appointed by the county council, and the chair shall be a community member, not a county official, period. Citizen members of the commission shall serve 4-year terms, which may be renewed by a vote of 2/3 of the commission. Period. The commission shall have the authority to recommend executive or legislative action when needed to support the implementation of SJC Resolution 31/2020, affirming commitment to a safe and inclusive community, and ensure conformity with the charter and county, state, and federal laws concerning non-discrimination. So that's how it currently reads as amended. So can we discuss this? I mean, there's going to be some editorial cleaning up of language there that'll be needed, but can we discuss how we feel about those proposed changes? Any comments, Sharon?
It looks good to me. Did you take that from where did the language come from? But it seems fine.
Well, I made it up based on the comment that Janet made about what would be the terms of these commissioners. You might recall she asked that.
Yes.
I also made it up because I realized there should be a date by which the commission's established, right?
Yes.
So I added that. I added also, because Janet asked who would be appointing the commissioners. So I added that as well in terms of the county council, right? I also added that, this I took from the, I think it was the composition language down below in that more detailed description. I added that the chair would be a community member, not a county official. And that's it, really. That's where the changes came from.
Seems good.
Kyle, did you have any
Madam
comments?
Chair,
Yes.
would you reread the part so a member's term can be extended an additional 4 years by 2/3 vote of who? County
Of the
council
commission.
or the commission?
Of the commission.
I don't know if that I don't have a personal issue with that, but I'm not sure. So some members will be chosen, because I think the way boards and commissions work now, it's all at the, it's really all at, I'm pretty sure it's at the kind of the luxury of county council, because there are so many vacancies. Most people sort of get renewed sort of automatically. I mean, there's a formality. As long as that's consistent with everywhere, it's not everywhere else. Your boards, because
Okay.
then you have some members staying on through internal politics potentially, but new members coming on via county council. I don't know if that works.
I see. Okay, so
Does that,
you're,
you follow?
yes, I do. So you're thinking that it should be the county council that makes that determination. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I like that the commission has its own head of steam, and it'll know its own business well enough. But there is some friction there potentially. There are two mechanisms by which somebody gets in the door. Well, two mechanisms by which someone sits on the board, either renewed internally or refreshed by council. And
Okay.
either, yeah.
Okay, what about the language? Could I propose that we say, may be renewed by recommendation of the commission
Yes,
and a vote of the majority of county council?
I think that's better for sure. I think that'll work. And that's what you're after, in my opinion. You want the commission to be able to speak, have a
Yes.
strong voice for its membership. I like it.
Yes. Okay. Sharon, are you okay with that suggested amendment?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And Kevin's got a thumbs up. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think. Okay, Kevin, any comments on that then?
No, all good.
Okay, let's proceed then, you guys, on that basis. All right, let's carry on. Articles or proposed amendment C, which was Article 8 Personnel System, Section 8.10, related to the purpose. If I recall correctly, we had a unanimous vote of approval for that amendment. So there were no discussion points on that for us today. Okay, and that was, I'll read it just so you remember. The county council shall, by ordinance, establish and by resolution, maintain a personnel system for the county. Prior to any amendments to the personnel system being made by resolution, written notice of a period of 30 days must be given to all elected officials and department heads of A, proposed amendments to the personnel system, and B, date and time of the meeting at which the proposed amendments will be considered. And that was voted on by a majority of the commissioners. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we can consider that one done. Kevin, I have a question for you though. There's a couple of these types of proposed amendments that are really more procedural and operational than they are justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So when we come up with our little write-up, our proposal to have the justice, equity, and diversity and inclusion measures be one package, I am not going to include these kinds of proposed amendments. Okay, is that correct?
I don't think you have to. They will need to be included as kind of findings, however, and background in the full document. But without seeing them and thinking about it in context of the full document, I can't answer that right now.
Okay, the reason I'm asking that question was just because a couple of these, I'm wondering if they couldn't be kicked into the ballot in November 22. Because they're not necessarily, some of them are not germane to some of the justice and equity and inclusion issues.
So two things. Anything that we can punt, we should punt. Secondly, we've not decided if we're going to do a second ballot in 2022. So if it's really important, then I would still hold out. But we're going to have a discussion as a full commission on which ones we're actually putting forward.
Okay, gotcha.
We're going
All
to
right.
continue this week going through everybody's recommendations and approving them. And then we're going to look at the full list and say, okay, it's too big. What are we cutting?
Fair enough. So there are only two in here that don't necessarily relate explicitly to justice, equity, and inclusion. And that's C and E. So I'll make a note of that for the full commission.
Well, I would maybe just bump them then.
But we still want them to go forward.
If they're not your committee's priority, then you can make a B list.
Okay, well, for me, it's not a matter of them not being a priority. They're all in here because they're important. I mean, this was something that is, this is about, C is about creating efficiencies, frankly, for our county administration. which technically should have fallen under ops, but they didn't pick it up. We did.
We'll probably have a discussion of kind of loose ends. And so it
Okay.
can come up then, and then maybe it just becomes part of there's gonna be one ballot measure, which is like all the small stuff. And maybe
Yeah.
it goes into that.
I think it would. Okay, so I'll just make a note of that. All right, moving right along. So we're looking at proposed amendment D, which is again relates to the personnel system. It relates to proposed language around exemptions. And so the only changes that were made were to proposed clauses 2 and 3. For proposed clause 2, it was again just making reference to the charter provisions and county legislation on non-discrimination, and that was Bob O'Connell's request. Ultimately, if that's somehow problematic, I imagine the PA's office will pick it up when they read our final language. Okay, so Kevin, we got to say bye. I understand. Okay,
I'm really sorry.
that's okay. All right. For clause 3, the only change that was made was to add the language, including on boards, commissions, and committees. So that first sentence now reads, and again, this was a request by a commissioner from the full commission. I think it was Maureen C. Exemptions provided by this section shall also not limit the county's responsibility to ensure that all people who are working for the county in a paid or volunteered capacity, including on boards, commissions, and committees, be treated equitably with dignity and respect. And the remainder of that clause was not changed. Sharon and Kyle, are you in agreement with that?
I think so.
How is that different again than the original or than last week's?
She wanted it to be explicit in terms of including the names of these bodies, which is boards, commissions, and committees,
I
because
see.
their operations committee was proposing this kind of language under section 2.60, which is not where it belonged.
Okay. I think that's more clear, and I don't have any issue with that.
Okay, excellent. So we'll move on. Okay. Then the next one is related to proposed amendment E. This is Article 9, Charter Review and Amendment, Section 9.21, related to vacancy. And the only edit that was made here, based on input from our full commission, was to add the words full commission meetings to qualify the type of meetings. So it now reads, if an elected commissioner dies, resigns, or is absent from 4 consecutive regular full commission meetings with or without prior notice being given to the chair, comma, and then it reads, everything else is the same. And that was because recognizing that the next Charter Review Commission could also strike committees to work on, subcommittees to work on things like we did, this clause would only apply to missing 4 consecutive regular full commission meetings, not 4 consecutive committee and or full commission meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharon, you know what I'm talking about here, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kyle, you missed that part of the meeting, but any issues with that?
I don't have any issue with that, no.
Okay, excellent. Moving right along. Okay, so F, proposed amendment F, which relates to section 2.60 and miscellaneous appointments. There was discussion on the issue of including representation from Coast Salish tribes, recognizing they may not be residents of the county. I left the text as it was because we voted on it favorably. There was, well, at least one commissioner who was not comfortable with it referring to Coast Salish tribal members who might not be residents of the county, but my proposal would be that we just leave it as it was voted on. I asked the question in my comments to you all whether we need to provide any clarifying text, but we did vote on it as a full commission favorably, and so maybe we just leave it. Are you in agreement with just leaving it, Sharon, Kyle?
I am, because we did, we discussed it, and it makes sense to me that, there are people that have very, very strong and very, very long history here that don't live in the county, but have very strong ties to it and interest in it. And I think that's really important. I mean, this is gonna, I guess, is probably, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it won't come up again with the full CRC, but I'm fine with it.
Okay, I'm fine with it too. So my proposal would be we leave it in as is, as it was voted on. Kyle?
Would you just say what you said, the last thing you said again? You're fine what?
My proposal is that we just leave the text as it was approved by the
Yes.
full commission, and if it comes back, it comes back.
Yeah.
Okay,
I agree with that.
okay, all right, let's proceed on that basis. So then, with regard to proposed amendment G, which is currently called San Juan County Acknowledgement of the Land and Waters of Indigenous Persons. That's the proposed title that would appear at the front of the charter with the accompanying text. And nobody had any comment on that proposed title. So, oh, Megan, did you want to?
Why persons versus peoples, or just, is there a reason for that?
No.
Okay, we can think
No.
about it.
Okay, okay, yeah, no, there was, no, there was no comment on the title whatsoever. So on that basis, and what we did was we actually approved this text subject to our committee discussing it once more with Kyle's involvement, because he's the one who did the research into this. So I don't,
I guess the one other thing I think you guys should think about is that your title says you're acknowledging the land and waters. Is that what you intend to acknowledge? Or are you acknowledging something else?
It's not the land or the water. It's the ancestral presence of and use of.
Okay,
That's
then we need to,
the pre-existence
okay,
factor.
okay, then that title I think probably needs to be rephrased. And can I
Yeah.
just tell you guys what some comments about the text below?
yeah, just one
Sure.
sec, Megan, before you do, because that is something that I've gotten comments on it too. And Kyle, if I can just, I don't know if you saw the recording of our meeting or you read the notes or heard what happened in the meeting, but we had started to revise it on the fly, and I was not comfortable with that whatsoever. And I said, please let us take this back into committee and discuss it. And we will come back to you with language based on what we feel we can do to revise it, given that it's being negotiated with tribes.
I sadly I did not see that part of didn't watch through to that part. I didn't appreciate that there was some input. I'm happy to listen to the input. I don't feel like I don't own the statement, and I don't feel comfortable either working on it because it's been crafted outside of this body, and that's been some of the, it pre-existed. It wasn't in the charter. The question is how to bring it into the charter, and I know that Kevin left, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The change from we to San Juan County or something like that is probably reasonable, but I should watch the rest of that and get the flavor of it, and get the flavor of what people wanted to change.
Well,
So tell me again, Jane, you wanted to hold on it until what in your mind, is it this meeting now and the recrafting right now that's the next touch, the
yeah,
next possible touch on it?
what
Okay.
I want to do is talk about it right now. And Megan, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Oh, no, it's fine.
yeah, there's important sort of there's important background to this. In terms of we need to discuss this now and come to some decision now. And what happened live in the meeting was Kevin was making some suggestions, some editorial suggestions to changes in the language that were then beginning to touch on changing the meaning of the language. And I was extremely uncomfortable with that. Having myself been involved in the negotiation of language of things that involves, foreign governments and things like that. And you just don't start playing with people's language in something that has been accepted. And so, for example, Kevin, and he literally started editing it on the fly, it was like, wait a minute, we can't be doing this. Because frankly, Kyle, we needed you there to speak to this because you're the one who did the research into this. And that's why I said, we have to take this back into our committee and discuss it with Kyle, who is more informed of how this statement came about, how it was negotiated and all the rest of it. But Kevin was saying, well, we don't, it's not appropriate to say we honor Aboriginal and treaty rights, or it's inappropriate to say we honor treaty rights and some things like that, and so it just started getting very uncomfortable for me, frankly, because I don't feel we're at liberty to make these changes.
And is that because can you guys back up and explain to me the context of this? Because
Sure.
I have a lot of language issues, and I would like to just point out the words and the phrases once you give me the context that kind of
Sure.
made me concerned, but go ahead and give me the background.
Go ahead, Kyle.
So, yeah, thank you. I don't know, Megan, how much county exposure you have, but the two big things are kind of highlights in the background of this. Number one, it's not been adopted by this statement, or any statement for that matter, has not been adopted by the county for use. This as it's written now, was crafted in conjunction between the Environmental Services Division, which is under Public Works, and that together with tribal representation kind of around the region. And I'm still not sure how far and wide that was true, but if you're not super busy, which I know is not true, there's some really great background on the Environmental Services Division part of the county website. There are 3 YouTube files that are essentially some of the conversation around this. And so I feel pretty strongly that anything, what we were after in the items or the topics area at the very beginning was kind of general recognition on multi-levels of the pre-existing ancestral use of the county, and the fact that the tribes are not more directly represented in day-to-day county government. And so this particular statement was not this one, but a statement was part of that. And I had offered to do the research and see if that could be something that was naively, I thought that maybe we could do that in the time between kind of the bringing up of the topic and creating an amendment by the middle of end of June. Happily, this was already hosted, and it's already had work done, and the land and water part is different than a number of them which are land only, and there's very, very complex and strong feeling that not only are the immediate Coast Salish or regional tribes and nations represented, but so too are, by extension, some of the more far-reaching native populations who traveled through or traveled to the San Juans. by all number of different relationships, including intermarriage and, people from
Right.
the east side of
Right.
the mountains and so forth. So the language is basically already there for us. And I feel like to bring it to the charter level, it either is verbatim or pretty exact with what's already been both crafted and sort of, I don't know if it's been blessed or if it's had any more specific of an adoption by the tribes, other than they've seen it, made word changes, and are aligned with it is how it's been explained to me. So
Okay, so
the-
I guess, I've heard, this is the second time I've heard people discuss the origins of it, and I feel like it's something that needs to be confirmed so that for sure, because it's kind of assumed that this is what happened. And so I think we need to verify it somehow and maybe see the original language that was agreed upon. I reiterate my concern about the title, about what it is that you're acknowledging, and that you might need to think clearer about what you are acknowledging. And then there's just some grammar stuff, I think, in the phrasing, and I know that was kind of happening on the fly, but I would suggest something like, we acknowledge that we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of Coast Salish people who called this place home since time immemorial. And we honor inherent Indigenous and treaty rights that have passed down from generation to generation. And I think everybody caught that the Indigenous is probably more customary use here.
Right,
I
the Aboriginal, yeah.
Yeah, I would still, again, I would want to see, was there an actual agreement? Was there a ceremony? Was there formal language that was produced? Because time immemorial, inherent, these are big words that people are throwing around, and it kind of dehistoricizes people in some ways. And if that came from the tribes, that's one thing. If it's coming from white people, that's another thing. So I just think I want you guys to be really careful about that language. And then just get the grammar right.
Okay, I hear both your points, or I hear all your points. I would say, I guess, in a counter way, I feel really comfortable. I don't have the background and the blessing and or whether there was ceremony or not. I do. So this comes through, like I said, environmental staff in that division, and that particular phrase is posted on their part of the website for public consumption as it's written.
Okay.
I have some concerns about coming back to any of the members and saying, well, hold on, there's some grammar, if it has been fleshed out, I think that I feel pretty strongly that it should be used as it's created, because anything else after that, it doesn't represent, any word crafting after that, whether it's grammar or changing the terms is another, at this point, is also sort of a colonial
Right.
Swipe. So I think we can get that, and I don't blame anyone in our meeting for coming up with concerns or thoughtful corrections or any of that sight unseen. And I'm sorry I wasn't there to help give some of the background. But I think we can fix that up. If there are, if I can get a copy, so.
And it's environmental divisions, or is it's natural resources division? Because that's what I see in the finding. So we would want to double check that and make sure that that's correct too.
Yeah, Environmental Services Division of the county.
Okay. Not the Natural Resources Division of Public Works.
Well,
and so that's the kind of thing that concerns me, is I don't want there to be factual errors.
Yeah, and just to be clear, Kyle, you really need to read through these findings because they're kind of your findings. I threw them together absent you know, you're writing them up yourself. And so,
Sure.
so, you know, I
appreciate that.
I didn't know that it was environmental services. So yeah, I agree with Megan. We need to ensure that factually we're correct there. And indeed, I think that if you could go back to that division and find out, you know, how this text was agreed upon and what you know, what acceptance was made of it, so to speak, like what happened that enabled it to be agreed upon by both sides. And I would say, you know, because if well, not if, but it seems that it was agreed to by tribal representatives. If that was the case, if there's some record of that, then the words should stand as they are. And I would say that it could be the work of the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission to revisit the text at a future time, you know, with tribal representatives to find out if they're satisfied with it. Are you there?
I appreciate that. I think, yeah, I think part of what I wanted to see, I mean, this was the full commission's first chance to even entertain the concept of, you know, including a statement of any kind. And so this is right where I think we need to be, actually. And I will happily follow that up and find that, you know, find those answers and make sure that I have those findings right. So.
Okay, yeah, let's just make sure we get it right. You know, that's all I'm asking for.
And I don't, you know, that isn't anything that I think that, you know, needs to be assigned away. I appreciate having your help, Megan, and certainly if there's more that needs chasing down, I do still have an unanswered 2 calls into our House Representative's office to get the one reply that I got back was, is this state business or is this personal, and is this you know, looking for an opinion on the part of Representative Lekanoff's, you know, personal perspective or historical interaction with the county, and it's not state business. So I'm not sure quite how. I can call again, and I have sort of dropped the ball on that since late last week. But hopefully
that's more of a legal question, right?
Well, she
Yeah.
can provide. I mean, she's been participatory and invested in the conversation, not just about relationship building, but specifically this statement and the crafting of it. My question for her was, and she's not the only representative, but I was cautioned to move through channels that already existed and not insert myself, especially as a county representative, you know, to sort of cold call tribal council members. And so, and I respect that, but I also hear that we need an answer and the right kind of feedback. I think we can get that from either Dr. Frances Robertson in environmental in that division, or from Kendra.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So are you going to circle back?
Call.
Yeah. Are you going to circle back with them on that, Kyle?
I will for sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then my recommendation would be to drop the Lekanoff connection. I don't think it's germane at this point.
Well, I hear you. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just not sure what you're asking her now at this point.
Well, you know, there is it's not that I don't trust the county's version of it, but it's much stronger in my mind if anyone from the tribal, any one of the participating various tribal members can speak to how deeply the statement was
Considered and consulted. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And verified and where that lands. But there are other people to connect with. And
can I just ask if she was involved directly then in this?
That's my understanding. She speaks on film to the outreach of Kendra and her staff to do some of the
So-
early work on
Yeah.
this very question, specifically on the statement. So
So here's my
she and
suggestion.
Patty Gobin.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say she and Patty Gobin from the Tulalip tribe are kind of the leads. Best I can tell, they're the leads in the conversation around this, and would be the people I think who would probably host if we were to add, you know, a representative or two from our group from Charter Review into the conversation, you know, months back. It would be through them, I think, that we'd have our other introductions. So that's and not because of her, in my opinion, not because of her role at in the state legislature at all. That's sort of
Yeah.
that's kind of that's not part of it wasn't part of the conversation that I heard.
So, okay, so I take back what I was suggesting about Deborah Lekanoff. I mean, what I would suggest though is that you reach out to both of them, because either of them could give you an answer, and that you just be very clear in what you want from them in the way of information. Are you asking them to explain a little bit the history of this statement, how it came about and how it was agreed upon and how representative it is? And so given how busy probably both of them are, you need to set it up so that you get an answer and you know, somehow sort of politely indicate that it is time sensitive.
Right.
So I would just have your ducks in a row in terms of what are you asking, yeah, and why, and then you can work through Lekanoff's aides, and then I don't know about Patty Gobin and whether she's got a assistant or something that works, that, you know, is her gatekeeper or whatever. But you know, ideally we would hear from one of them, not necessarily both.
Sure. What you can tell me this. What is I heard, you know, a few minutes ago where it kind of stands. You sort of tabled it without being comfortable to make any changes. Do you think it has support as it's written among the group, or I mean, I'm happy to do this work. I really want this to be the case, but I mean, if there were strong feelings among the group and the history is irrelevant to people, it's a different question. And I don't want to create any hopes either on any side that there'll be. I mean, this is up to the voters anyway. But I mean, there's kind of a counterpoint here that, you know, I don't really speak for anybody on this front. But you know, if your sense is that if it's taken as it's currently written and is basically as is or nothing, what's your sense there? Or maybe it wasn't introduced that way, but is there enough of an appetite on the CRC to move forward no matter what it says, I guess?
Okay, so just to be really clear, the CRC voted unanimously in favor of this statement going into the charter, and was reliant upon this committee to sort of verify the appropriateness of the statement as is and the use of the statement as is, and explore whether any editorializing of it is you know, can be done or should not be done. And so it's up to us to you know, sort of get that verification that the statement should be, if it's going to go in the charter, it should go in as is. And so the other thing I would say is that doing this kind of reaching out and this verification really needs to be part of our findings for our findings to be solid.
I don't know if this is helpful or not, and I don't really know if I could even accomplish this today, but I am up here with members of the Lummi Nation. I'm at a Totem Pole Journey event. I could run the language by them, by a couple of people. I don't know if that's helpful, but I could certainly try to do that.
I wouldn't even go near that hornet's nest. It's a very generous offer, but I would not even touch that. No, I think that's a very risky thing to do. This isn't, yeah, because these food people wouldn't know where this has come from.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Sorry,
I
Kyle?
would agree with, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that I would agree with that. And it may very well be that there are members present, or the right person there who's aware of it and who has seen it. But I think I don't know. That's not the format or the place to ask that question. I appreciate that, Sharon,
Sure.
but
Well,
Yeah.
what do the Friends of the San Juans use? I mean, they have I'm sure they do a land acknowledgement,
I don't know that answer.
we
But
could check it.
well, so here's the other thing though. I'm gonna, sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
No, I said that'd be very easy to look up or to call and talk to staff about there.
So
I'm
I
not
just
aware
had,
that they have.
yeah, sorry, I'm going to interrupt for a moment. I'm sorry, Kyle, because we need to go to public comment, and then and Linnea has kindly joined us today, and I have a comment on that idea that Sharon just mentioned, but I'll save it until after we welcome Linnea to speak to us. So, hello, welcome.
Oh, I don't want to interrupt your wonderful discussion. I'm so grateful to be a fly on the wall and witness the work that you all are doing. And I just want to thank you for your ever commitment to this subject matter, not just the theory of it, but the mechanics of it. And it is such an important topic for our community. And thank you for hauling this hard water, the sacrifices you all are individually making, that your families are making. Thank you most sincerely.
Thank you, Linnea. And thank you for joining us and being a part of us, because it's meant a heck of a lot. And you've contributed so much to our work as well. So very glad that you continue to journey with us. Okay, so Sharon, just if I may respond to the suggestion you just made about the Friends of the San Juan. My point there is, my thoughts there are that it's significant that this statement came out of the San Juan County government. And so to now refer to a statement of a not-for-profit is less weighty in terms of having weight. It's less, for me, and maybe you guys disagree, if it's come out of the government already and what we are doing and making amendments to the charter is government business, I would not defer to a not-for-profit statement, because anyway, that's just my thought on that.
My thought on it is, we want to use the most proper and accurate language. So I'm not as attached to whether it comes from government or nonprofit, as long as it reflects what we really want to say, what we're really acknowledging, and use the proper language in terms of who we're talking about, and keep it simple.
So Kyle, did you want to respond to that?
Well, I follow the notions, and I appreciate that. I don't. At this point, I feel pretty strongly that whatever, there isn't time to do an organic, from the heart and accurately reflective and also with buy-in kind of statement for use by the county, probably by anybody in the time frame ahead. And there probably would not have been had we done it, the way we were doing it, to try and start from scratch. That's all the more reason why it's exciting that there is something. And I understand from staff that it does have, that it is grounded in hard work and focused work, and with the inclusion and the referral to sort of outside counsel, if you will. And I think that's the best way to move forward. I think for the sake of findings and for the sake of the commission, it's fairly straightforward, I think, to find out what the heritage of the statement is, and who in fact and by what means it has keep using the word blessing. I don't necessarily mean that formally, although that would be great. But if it has
Endorsement,
yeah,
acceptance.
the approval,
Yeah,
if
so-
any of that is in place from you know, from, I don't think it's going to necessarily have everyone's approval at every level of you know, the public or the tribes. I think we find that out and, you know, shore that up. And in the absence of that, then we don't use one, because it isn't anything that we fast track. So, I mean, that's my feeling on it. And it was us bringing it to the full commission. So, you know, I think those ingredients are there. I clearly haven't done enough of the work to make that, you know, to find its full heritage and share that with everybody. But I think that's easy work compared, and I appreciate getting it right. It has to be right, and it has to be reflected in the findings. And I think that's fairly easy to do. I don't know that it doesn't need to be sourced from scratch at this point, whether from another entity or, you know, from a chalkboard. So
yeah. So if I can just share my views, but my final views on this, and then maybe we can move on, because we still have some further work to do. But I've negotiated memorandums of understanding between, for example, the government of Canada and the government of Indonesia, or the government of Canada and the local government in Bolsa district in Ghana. And, you know, whatever statement is negotiated has to reflect the views of both sides, both parties. So for me, that is why for me, I feel it's important that it was representatives of San Juan County government that engaged with representatives of tribal governments, if you will, to discuss and negotiate language that would be meaningful for both parties. And so that is very, very challenging work to do. It takes relationships of trust. It takes relationships where you listen to each other. And so for me, it's not up for our commission of white people to come up with the right language. I mean, I just feel so strongly about that. And that's why I was very delighted to hear what, Kyle, you found out about Environmental Services Division having done this hard work. It's painstaking. And I would recommend that if we can get this commission established, that one of the orders of business or one of the tasks of that commission would be to reopen discussion of this acknowledgement and determine whether it says what all parties wish it could say to reflect their shared views. But at the end of the day, what matters most really is whether what we're wanting to acknowledge is what tribes want us to be acknowledging in a way that makes sense for them and their history, not based on our feelings. I mean, anyway, so that I feel really strongly about this, and it has to do with having worked in the lands of other people throughout my entire career, and realizing that I'm an outsider, and which is in a way what we are here, if we think about time immemorial. So I feel that's where I land on this. And I guess in my final comment would be, Kyle, what we need you to do, what I'm asking you to do as your co-chair, is to please reach out again to Deborah Lekanoff's office and to Patty Gobin, and let their staff know that it is our commission's desire to include this acknowledgement. And by the way, the title is one I made up. So the title can be whatever we want it to be, or nothing at all. We don't even need a title, but absent any other thoughts on this, I just created it. So we don't even have to have a title, but I would just be very clear in saying our Charter Review Commission has voted favorably to include an acknowledgement that we know exists, that was created by Environmental Services Division and representatives of tribes in the region. And we would like to just get further understanding of how that was established, so that we can reflect that back to our full commission and settle on the wording. And if you don't have time to make one of those calls, I'll be happy to make one of them for you. You've already reached out to Lekanoff's office, but that would be what I suggest we do to proceed.
I like it. I think for now, just, to continue that the honoring piece as much as possible, I'll stick with it. And I hear the urgency, and I think we are past business for today, Monday, but I'll make it a priority for tomorrow to both talk with environmental services staff, the ones I think who need to be included. Well, they'll tell me who needs to be included, and then from there, the necessary referrals, tribal referrals, and get us the answer we need.
Yeah, and in the spirit of just two things. One is landing on the language that people feel we should be using and including, and the second is finalizing our findings and to ensure their accuracy and the information is sort of robust and serves the purpose.
I like it.
Okay.
What was the
Excellent.
name?
I'm on it. We'll commit to that.
Great.
Thank you. What was the name of the woman that you mentioned? Patty Govan? Who's that?
I'm not sure what her title is, but she works in, I'm pretty sure she works in admin also for the Tulalip tribe.
Oh, what's her? Can you spell her last name for me?
Gobin.
Govin.
B-boy. G-O-B boy.
Oh,
Gobin.
Gobin. Gobin. Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent. So Kyle, if you can get back to us on that when you've got
bet.
some more information, yeah, that would be excellent. And in terms of a title, I don't know whether we even bother having a title. We could just,
You're usually just called land acknowledgement.
or how about just acknowledgement?
I don't think so.
I'll get that as well, or I'll get a sense from staff about that piece too, because I'm sure that's I'm sure that's a common question, and
Okay.
And see if there's strong feeling one way or the other.
Okay, excellent. All right, so listen, it's 5:32 now, and what's left is my edits to the proposed recommendation number 1 regarding the Law and Justice Council, and then also my proposed edits to the further detail on the commission in terms of its purpose and mandate, its membership, composition, and tasks, and its functioning. And then actually there's a third issue that that needs to be addressed, and that is the issue of it needing to be clear, although I'm not sure this is an issue, and Sharon, I'd appreciate your thoughts on this because you were a part of the meeting last week. The need for clarity for the voters between the Law and Justice Council and its purpose and that of the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. But Patty wasn't aware that the proposed recommendations for the Law and Justice Council were just recommendations and don't appear on the ballot. So I don't know where that left us, frankly, and I don't think many people are even aware that we have a Law and Justice Council. So I don't know, Sharon, did you have any thoughts on that particular issue?
I just think we need to be clear. I don't know if that's helpful, but I'm glad that it came up because we want to be clear, make a clear distinction about what the council that already, and I thought that was really well explained in our meeting. We just have to really well explain it to everybody that there's a very big difference between the existing Law and Justice Council and the committee that we are wanting to create. They're just completely different. The makeup of them is completely different. Their focus is completely different. We just have to be very clear about that.
Yeah.
And that's going to be part of our
Okay.
education and outreach to the public.
Okay, so maybe what I should do then is, Sharon, I'm thinking what I should do is just edit some text, draft some text of that by way of explanation of the difference between the bodies, and maybe run that past you and also Megan.
Yeah, I think I caught a good bit of that in the notes. I think
Excellent.
I caught a good bit of it.
Excellent, because Megan would also be a fresh set of eyes, right? As someone who's going to be voting here in November, right? And a bit newer to the scene. So why don't I offer to do that, which is just draft a couple of paragraphs that distinguishes the two bodies and share that with you and Megan and see what, and get your response to that. And that could possibly go in the voters pamphlet or something like that, or be somewhere, you know, for purposes of, as you said, Sharon, creating awareness among the voters.
Yeah, we're gonna have a whole bunch of outreach and education to do, I think. So
Right.
this will be part of that. Hey, listen, I
sure.
just want to say my laptop is down to 14%. I could switch to Mike's laptop, but I'd have to get off the meeting and get back on. So just let you know that that's kind of, I'm
Fair
running
enough.
out of juice here on my.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So, if you both will agree to this, can I propose that you just have a final read through of my proposed recommendations and findings, and then the edited text on further detail on the proposed amendment of the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission, and give me any feedback you have?
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that.
Could we just, if we could just handle it that way, and then we could just respect everybody's sort of time and just, yeah, the proposed change to, or the editorializing I did of the proposed recommendation on the, to the county council on membership on this Law and Justice Council was, it wasn't, I just, yeah, you'll just see the two minor changes. One was a paragraph that reflected something that Randy Gaylord told me needed to be reflected, and you'll see what that is, which is just, there would be times when citizen representatives cannot sit in parts of the meeting. So I just captured that. And then the other is, you know, whether we remove, you know, one female representative, whether we remove female and just say one representative of the BIPOC and or LGBTQ community, and not specify that it be female. So any comments you have on that recommendation number one, I'd be welcoming of your feedback.
Okay. Yeah.
Happily.
I know
Yeah.
we're in somewhat uncharted waters here. Some of these uncharted waters here. Yeah, and chartered
terms of-
waters too. Yeah,
That's why you're chartering it.
that's right.
In terms of what? Sorry.
In terms of addressing gender,
Oh,
You
I
know.
yeah, I don't
Membership.
feel the waters. Yeah, in what
Just-
regard? What do you mean here?
well, specifying female and then not specifying non-binary.
Yeah, okay. Then let's just make it simple and just remove female, okay? Because we can't. We don't have time to go down that road. Frankly, we just don't. You know.
Alternate. Can we say alternate gender? Non-male.
Well, no. Yeah, no, we can't. You know. I just. Yeah. Let's just think about it a little further.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk offline, Sharon, if you want. And discuss that a little bit as you reflect on it.
You won't hurt my feelings.
Well, Bob O'Connell kind of raised it as well, you're not talking about non-binary people, and that's a lot of women, and I couldn't really tell where he's coming from. But, you know, let's be honest, non-binary people don't generally jump out of the closet very, very frequently these days. We're not quite there yet. Maybe in urban centers where they have supports, but certainly not in this environment. So I think we start getting into tricky territory and challenging territory, given the level of progress our county has in terms of any of this stuff, frankly. And so,
you know, we haven't really talked a lot about this as a committee, and I know I can hear that, and I don't want you to. I don't know if you're shying back or not away from this. You know, this focus or this intention, Jane. I think I'm struggling to some extent with the difference. Is there a difference between, you know, holding a space for, and then, you know, really trying to, you know, create representative seats, like must-haves. And so, you know, when you were introducing some of this, when I was hearing it verbalized, when you were introducing it to some of the notion of it to the whole commission, I was thinking that part, like, oh, this group could be 4 people. You know, if no one stepped forward representing some of these other populations, would the county go out and actively seek potentially different, you know, volunteer or citizen members of this board? And if not, you know, how would that happen? How would that be advertised? How would it be explored? Because it's really the makeup of this particular recommended body is pretty unequaled elsewhere in the county. And then there was a question, I think it came up, but I had it in my mind, you know, if it's 50% female, but it ends up being an odd number of people, are there kind of conflicting rules about it? And I just left with the sense that it is, we're really wanting, ideally, we get membership from every population that we feel needs to have a voice in the conversation about the JEDI issues. That's different than who actually turns up and you know, commits themselves to the work. And I think that's the hard part that I see with this. How do you make space for people and encourage it and try and actually make it happen, versus, and how do you write that now that we're trying to create those chairs where there weren't any before, where it was just, you know, whoever has a warm body and shows some interest. And so I think that's the challenge. I don't have any concerns about being intentional about who to try and find. So I just, maybe you're not rethinking it. I don't want you to. I think the hard part is to figure out how do you make that, how do you include the intention that we have to be that broad, and then what does that look like the first month that commission gets continued or stood up with its new membership, if you follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
I will. Yeah.
I'll happily reread it and make some written comments about that. And you know, if it's really mostly a recommendation back to the standing body to do a better job and to reflect in a more inclusive way the whole county and, you know, those people not represented, I think any effort is a great one. If we had to build, you know, luckily the charter doesn't build the actual group. So anyway, I think every effort is a useful one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, we may not be finished talking about this completely. I mean, there's 2 things here. Kyle, when you read this, one is the inclusion of citizen representation in the Law and Justice Council. That's one thing, and the other is the proposed membership of the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. So there's 2 separate things here to consider when you look at this. And you know, so one question is, should we indicate that there should be a female representative of the BIPOC and or LGBTQ community of the county, and that could be a female representative who identifies as female, but perhaps is non-binary. So that's another possibility there. You know, so should we be specific about a female representative or not? And that's for the Law and Justice Council, citizen representation. Okay. So that's different than the representation on the commission. And I know that Sharon took issue with the idea of 50% female representation, and so did Bob. And so, you know, I'm open to further discussion and thinking about that. I just am conscious that I'm just conscious that if you don't encourage women to come to the table, they don't necessarily come, and you don't create space for them, they don't necessarily come. And I can almost guarantee if we got the sex disaggregated data on the composition of commissions and committees and boards in our district, I would I would buy you both bottles of wine. I'm joking. If, no, I'm not actually. If we were told that there were more women than men on those bodies. I think it's probably many more males are on those bodies than females. But I could be wrong, but I'm just saying, I think in the case of this particular commission, I think it's important to encourage female representation for sure. That's why I'm saying that, for me, I think it makes sense to have, some percentage. I mean, if it's not 50, it should still be high.
I just want to say I totally agree with that. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be. I'm just saying we need to, look at equity from that standpoint too, as we're doing this, putting this language in for the next 10 years.
Well, no, this isn't language for the next 10 years of the commission, though. This is detail that will accompany the proposed amendment in the charter. So this doesn't go in the charter, okay?
Okay, right.
No, so it doesn't appear in that. So this could be subject to change. So that it's not. This is further detail on the proposed amendment in terms of the accompanying information the county council would receive about how it would be struck. So. That's important because we don't want something like this to be written for 10 years. So that's important to keep in mind. The other thing is I did change the way the membership was set out, and I did change it to say that there will be up to 10 local citizens who among them represent each of the 3 districts in the county. This number may be exceeded if greater representation from local tribes needs to be accommodated. And then I also said, oh shoot, I lost my text there. Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at composition. Up to 6 representatives from diverse communities of people in the county, including but not limited to, and then I listed LGBTQ, Latinx, Black, Asian youth, senior citizens, women. So anyway, just read this through and see where you land with it. And if we need to have a conversation about it, I'm happy to do that. But just to be clear, this isn't what would go in the charter. It's what would enable this body to be struck. And Kyle, to your comment, there a lot of work is going to need to happen behind the scenes to set this up. And yeah, so and I'm just seeing some comments from Linnea. She's saying perhaps language priority given to women, BIPOC, non-gender conforming, that's a good idea. And then she's saying citizens or residents or member of the community. That's a good question. And so, yeah, I'm just making a note of those and pasting them in my document because we need to discuss
those are great distinctions for sure.
Yeah. So I will send you all a couple of questions along those lines. To see what language you want to come up with. Okay, so
I want to share with both of you, I don't work a single paramedic shift for the next 11 days. And I can't tell you how overjoyed I am and how much that will benefit my participation. So not an excuse, just a point I look forward to. And yeah, my apologies to the group for consistency and in presence, and especially work product coming down to the wire here, because it's this is the time where, and I appreciate I don't take exception to any of the stuff that you included at the last kind of in findings and figuring out membership or the makeup of the 2 groups. I think that's just one of those places where we didn't have as much discussion and in an effort just to get it together, and that's just how it worked out. But I'm glad you're willing to now, because I think we can. It isn't that I'm having any exception to what's there as it is. It's just another opportunity to have more conversation.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, no, we understand. I mean, I certainly understand what you've been up against, and so. It would be very helpful if, we may need to have a couple offline conversations and then come together one last time. Because we do need to present this we need to present our final to the full CRC. And I think we can do that for some of this, but not all of it. But having said that, I very much wish that we will be finished by next Monday.
Okay. I'm with you. I hear that.
Yeah. because I'm done. I'm really done with this. I'm excited, but I'm just so, yeah. So
I hear you. I hear you. It's time.
yeah, I want to be done next Monday. So that's what, and if we need to have some offline conversations to get where we need to be, that's great. But I think we need to plan on having one last committee meeting next Monday.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think we're really close. I do.
Yeah,
Not just
yeah,
saying
we
that.
are. We certainly are. And I'm going to make, I will, with the benefit of any notes from Sharon, I will make the final, I'll make further revisions based on what we agreed to today, and may have a couple comments in there for stuff we need to finalize still. I'll flip that back to you all. And then I have from you guys that you will take a look at proposed recommendation number 1, and also the further detail that, talks about how this body would be, once it's struck.
Okay,
Okay.
I do
Or-
commit to that. I
Yeah.
have a question and a comment. One is, so where are we then? What are we? In what ways in what ways will Megan help us? What are we sending her way in terms of committee work, or are we?
Yeah. So there's a couple things, and some of it will involve you as well, Kyle. So the first thing is she's going to take a look at the non-discrimination sections. She's going to take a look at all of this for editorial purposes, with the caveats that we've identified, of which there are a few. I think
We're going to get together and talk about what ways the charter, any single discrimination question or amendment or proposal interfaces with the rest of the standing charter for language, right? Is that what we committed to?
Yeah, and I'm still almost as lost as I was originally on that. But I think what'll help us is what Kevin shared in terms of this, the severability language, and also the work we need to do to come up with a policy, come up with a one proposal that would include all of these measures. So we need to come up with some language around that. And that's where we might figure out the charter, reference to the charter or not, if you're following me.
I am, yeah.
They're related to each other. And then, so there's that. And so between yourself and Megan and I, we need to work on that. Then there is, what else? I need to pull out the pieces that kind of don't relate to the justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion stuff, which is only 2. And that's, and those might be, those could be simple ones that get packaged with a few other simple ones that are really more mechanistic and operational than they are justice and equity and stuff. And then let's see, what else was there? There's the work that you need to do, Kyle, on the, trying to look at my check marks are, and that there's the work you're going to do in terms of the follow-up on the acknowledgement
The
piece.
statement,
Yeah.
right?
And then, and any of this Megan can be, well, she will be having a look at, right? For editing and grammar and that. And then there is the last thing is you and Sharon providing your inputs on what I've mentioned already.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, those are kind of the, so, the first thing that needs to happen is I need to make the edits based on our discussion today. So we're clear on what is final already. And then I can add some comments that are reminders for what we still need to follow up. Does that sound good?
Okay. Comments in the document itself.
Yeah, I think that's,
Call
yeah,
attention. Okay.
yeah. Okay. All right. So is that good? Are we good?
Are you joining, madam? Are you joining process tomorrow? Is
No,
that your-
we can
is that your plan at this
finish.
point?
Yeah. Well, actually, I guess we could. Let's finish the meeting, and then you and Sharon and I can talk
Okay.
briefly about that.
Okay.
Okay. Sharon, thank you for taking notes again.
Sure thing. What, I can't see on my partner's laptop what time it is. What time is it right now? Oh, I actually have my watch on. Okay, so it's 5:55. We're ending.
Yes, so can I have a
Nice.
motion to adjourn?
Motion
So
to adjourn.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, Linnea, for your contributions again, as always.
Thank
Stop.
you, amazing humans. Bye, everybody.
Really
Bye.
appreciate your inputs. Thanks a lot. All right, bye-bye. Okay, stop recording. Stop.